7 o'clock. I'd like to call the January 17th DeSoto City Council meeting to order. We'll start with roll call, please.
Here.
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 Thank you, Council. Everyone's present.
Okay, thank you. Before we do the consent agenda, I would like to modify a motion to modify the agenda to add item 4E, adding the ordinance for building code issues.
I'll make a motion. We amend the agenda at item 4E.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next is our consent agenda. We have the approval of the minutes from our
Mayor.
council. Yes.
Excuse me, you want to do the Pledge of Allegiance?
Oh, my gosh. It's right there. Thank you. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I had my note for item 4E in the wrong spot, and then I
Skipped right over.
skipped the pledge. So next is our consent agenda. We will approve the minutes from our council meeting of January 3rd and approve pay ordinance 846. Any questions or discussion?
I'll make a motion. We approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Okay. Our next item is call to public. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to comment about matters relating to city business that are not listed on tonight's agenda. The comments that are listed under call to public may or may not be acted on at the council during this meeting. There will be a 4-minute time limit, and I would, before we start that, I would like to remind everybody to limit their comments to avoid personal attacks, profanity, keep our time civil and productive. So anyone wish to address the council under call to public? Are you commenting about the next item or? Okay, stay close. We'll do that then with the item. I think we'll just do it then. Just, yeah.
Well, if it's on the agenda, it's not really open for public comment typically.
So we'll take it with the item then. You will have an opportunity to share your comments. Seeing none on call to public, we'll move on to item 3A, old business. Consider appointment for Northwest Consolidated Fire District Board. And I will start this with just a little bit of background and information. First, I want to talk about and clear up any confusion that there might be about city appointments in general. Since taking over as mayor, I've asked the council and city staff to publicize and seek out interested candidates for any appointments that the city might make. My thought is that it would be good to involve a wide range of our citizens in the city's operations. And we've done that on our several appointments to date, and I think it's worked out well. The appointment to the fire board is an appointment of the governing body as a whole rather than just an appointment from recommendation of the mayor, was handled in the same manner. We received interest from 2 candidates, Walt McDaniel, who just completed a term on the board, and Brooks Young. And we believe that both candidates should be given fair consideration. We are certain that we will have succeeded in that when we're done making our appointment. Just a quick rundown on qualifications for board members. The board members need to be residents of the district, the city, and the city and BOCC can't have each have more than 2 elected or appointed officials on the board. We don't have any other qualifications, so you need to be a resident living, for our appointment, you need to be a resident in the city that is in the fire district. Appointed board members serve at the pleasure of the entity that appointed them. Neither the city of DeSoto nor the county have direct supervisory authority over the board. And then lastly, for those wishing to make public comment on this, I would like to limit our comment time for this item to a total of 30 minutes. I would like to limit each commenter to a total of 4 minutes. If you wish to provide comment, please stand and wait to be recognized by the mayor. When you're called, proceed to the podium, state your name and address, and then your time will begin once you've stated your name and address. The council typically will not respond to your comments unless they request a clarification about a statement you've made. Please direct all comments to the city council as a body. We ask that you would refrain from using profane language or language that is disruptive to the orderly process of the meeting. Please refrain from engaging in conversations with individual members of the council, and we ask that you refrain from making comments of a personal nature regarding others. For those in the audience, we ask that you be respectful for those that are at the speaker and refrain from making comments from the audience. With that, I think I've covered everything. We have the two applicants. We received information from both. Either would be provided an opportunity to speak here tonight if they chose, and I know that some have requested an opportunity to speak. Bill made his request earlier. So if there are no objections to or any questions or discussion about what I've said, then we'll move on to the next step. And I would invite you then to, if you wish to comment on this from the audience, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and then we'll start your comment time.
Given the time constraints, actually, council, earlier today I sent you a draft of my speaking points that I intended to share. I don't think I can get it done in 4 minutes. So I'm going to go, they included some information as well as some requests. I'm going to go directly to the requests, and then I'll give you as much information as I can in the time allotted. My first request is to please consider making changes to the current Northwest Johnson County Consolidated Fire Board makeup, beginning with DeSoto Council's appointed position to be considered later this evening, apparently right after this, as part of this agenda item. Walt McDaniel's conflicted position and history of unethical behavior is well documented. And secondly, I requested the council to direct Mr. Levy to ask the Kansas Bureau of Investigation to investigate the conflicts of interest outlined here, where I'm going to share these, between appointed board members, their blood relatives, and also Doug Bedford's conflicted positions of authority as both the supervisor of the accused, which I will explain in a moment, and the supervisor of the investigation of the accused in St. County, in his capacity as Johnson County Sheriff. So here are some facts that probably most of you know, but I say them to put them together for the benefit of our public and the city council. Doug Bedford and Walt McDaniel are members currently of the Northwest Johnson County Fire Board. Walt is the chairman of the fire board, and Doug has, at least in the past, performed some of the chair's duties. McDaniel's son also works for the department, which consists of about 25 employees. Bedford's nephew also works for the department. To my knowledge, these two family members / employees' job performances or fitness to be employed is certainly not in question. It's strictly about board leadership. McDaniel's son and Bedford's nephew were both promoted by title and presumably pay grade a little more than a year ago. Shortly after the promotions, then Chief Mike Quinn told me that Walt McDaniel approached him to discuss a buyout of his services. And I know that he's a at-will employee, but the request was made. According to Quinn, Wynn refused this buyout of his continued employment, and he tells me that he felt he had done nothing that would warrant a forced buyout. In fact, still believes he improved the department's operation, training, and professionalism. He backed this up with data which I and several other community members shared with this council almost exactly a year ago in January 2018. McDaniel and Bedford were responsible for completing the former chief's annual performance evaluation in 2017. According to Wynn, within a few months of being asked to consider a buyout, the chief was being given the implied choice by one of the board's attorneys, and primarily by Bedford and McDaniel, of resigning or having charges filed against him for allegations of computer fraud. Chief Wynn resigned. Over the course of these next 12 months, closer to more recently than the whole 12 months, investigators from the Johnson County Sheriff's Department interviewed the former chief through his attorney and others regarding these allegations. Doug Bedford is not only one of the two fire board members responsible for the chief's annual review and one of the two members who attempted to negotiate his resignation, but he's also the Johnson County undersheriff. I've already talked about that. On January 7th, a year after the allegations surfaced and Wynn resigned under the threat of criminal charges, former chief was arrested by Johnson County Sheriff's deputies at his home on 2 counts of computer crime. I was a witness to this. The supervising officer told those of us who witnessed the arrest that the sheriff, quote, always sends 3 officers when it is a political
Sorry,
arrest.
Bill, but the timer has gone off. If I can figure out how to shut it off.
Refer to the case in 1998 about Mr. McDaniel and the sexual harassment claims. The findings of sexual harassment.
Anyone else wish to comment?
Sure, I will. Just so you know, there were no findings of sexual harassment.
Excuse me, ma'am, may I have your name and
I'm sorry,
address,
I'm
please?
John Kreger, 33108.
I'm sorry.
33108 West 87th Terrace. John Kreger, Kroeger. There were no claims of sexual harassment. He was not convicted of this. Thank you.
Brooks, is Brooks here? Do you wish to make any statement or any? I don't want to put you on the spot. If you have something you want to share regarding your qualifications that you haven't shared in your letter, you're free to do that. But you don't have to if you don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, I basically just, Brooks Young, 9624 Corliss Court, Soto. Was just made aware about maybe 3 months ago of the appointment for the position. And I'm not here to say that I would necessarily do a better job. I don't know Mr. McDaniel at all. Basically, when they approached me, I kind of looked a little bit into it. I guess the only concern I really have is the fact that the way I understand it is that 5th position is really for an alternating position between Johnson County and then for 3 years, and then 3 years in for DeSoto. I guess my concern would be having the same person hold that same position in the alternating. I think the initial setup would be for an alternating person, and so to be the same person, I felt was maybe a little bit off of what it was originally intended for. So as far as my qualifications, I've never been a firefighter, so I don't claim to be. Just being a citizen here in DeSoto, I've lived here almost 11 years, and active member. I have 3 kids in the school system here. I coach baseball, coach wrestling. I'm actually missing wrestling practice tonight, but I plan on living here for a long time, and I like being involved in the community. I have an active doctor's office just outside of DeSoto city limits over there, off 95th and K7. And so when that was brought up to my attention, I looked into it and thought, well, that might be something I would be interested in, and just thought I would throw my hat in the ring.
Right.
And that's really it.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'll offer you the same opportunity. I know you it said you didn't want to, Walt, but I just wanted to make clear that you had the opportunity to. We have your letter. Right. Thank you. So with that, I guess we can roll. There's a couple things. So there's the one thing. We could delay, which I wouldn't be in favor of, but we could delay until the charges that were brought were resolved, and then that was settled, and then make the permanent appointment or the appointment at that time, or we can move forward with the motion to appoint, fill the position tonight. So those are the two things I see. I don't know that we're going to get any more information. I think we've all had the letters of interest. We've heard from Brooks tonight. Appreciate him coming tonight. And sure. It's just a thought. If the I really don't know. It's just not. No, not really. And I think it would be best for the community if we could resolve this, move forward, and
I'm in favor of moving forward.
Okay.
The allegations that were stated contained a lot of hearsay, of which Chief Wim I don't believe would be here to validate or verify. Drawing it out for the community, I don't believe is it beneficial. So I'm in favor of moving forward.
I am also.
So then I'm not seeing anybody that would be in favor of delaying, so I guess with that I would entertain a motion for a candidate.
I'll make a motion
Okay.
for Walter McDaniel to continue his involvement with the Johnson County Fire District. He's done a good job in the past, and I've continued to see, according to his resume and stuff, that he will continue doing a good job.
Okay.
I will second that.
All right. We have a motion and a second.
This is Resolution 1005.
Okay. Resolution 1005, motion to approve. You ready for roll call, Anna? Okay, roll call. I'm sorry.
Murdoch,
Well, usually there's discussion after a motion and a second, or an opportunity for
Okay,
discussion. I guess is just from leadership and managerial principles, I think the concern of the conflict, I can't speak to allegations or that kind of thing, but the conflict situation does concern me, because it puts the fire chief in a difficult situation where the person who has direct authority over his job, he's supervising a family member of somebody who has direct authority over his own job. And, just as a leader, you try to avoid creating those kinds of situations, and to acknowledge it and then accept it is effectively condoning, that conflict of interest situation. So, and those things always work out fine. They're always fine until they're not fine. Mm-hmm. So just as a leader, and from principles that I practice and have learned over a couple of decades now, at least, I try to avoid those wherever possible, because it's not just the fire chief that could be in an awkward situation, but it's also perceptions of other employees of the fire district of ways that things may be handled in the future. So that's just my input on.
Thank you.
on the
Sorry,
situation.
I didn't give you an opportunity
That's okay.
to comment before we started the roll call.
That's okay.
Continue with the roll call, or you want to start over?
I'll start again.
Thank you.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Anna Michael,
Because of the conflict, I have to vote no.
Daniels,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you, council. The motion carried.
Okay. Thank you both for your interest. Thank you, Brooks, for stepping forward, and I'll be tapping you again for future appointments and reminding you when things come up. Our next item, 4A, discuss 2019 strategic plan update.
Yes, council, we talked about this a little bit at the previous meeting. We had some red line versions for you at that time. As a reminder, the entire red line version of the 2019 update is included in your packet. You'll remember 2018, we did a red line update as well. All of the 2018 additions or revisions have been accepted, so those are no longer red lines. So all of the redlining you see on the current version is changes between the 2018, which we did in January of 18, and now. So we went through the red line at the last council meeting, and we had some discussion on several items. And I just wanted the staff report. I've pointed out just a list of modifications, everything I've changed since we saw it last at the previous council meeting. I don't know if I need to go through those line by line, but those are 1 through 8 there are the main ones. Just some rewording in the front end of the document. There's some modification of objectives relating to Parks and Rec master plans. The one I did want to bring up was number 6 there, Initiative EX1. I think the previous version had a goal relating to commitment to support EDC and economic development initiatives. I think we wanted a little stronger wording on that particular goal, so we've reworded it to indicate that we will increase our commitment to the EDC. I think before it was just maintain. So it's a little bit stronger initiative there, which sprung out of the discussion we had at the last meeting. And then number 7 is another one I want to bring to your attention. There's been discussion, the EDC roadmap and many of our decisions that we've made here over the last, since the recession really have been aimed at promoting and incentivizing specifically residential development in town. And we've had on at least a couple of occasions recently the discussion or the question come up, should we sort of look at the economic health and the momentum of that type of development in town and consider a point in the future when we want to back off that throttle and roll back some of the incentives, or at least de-emphasize that priority in our strategic planning. So I did provide some language there, and we can flip to page 14 here in a second to show you. I guess I'll do that now. Not that I don't remember what I wrote, but I... So on 14, and I think, actually this language is incomplete the way it is. I think that was a mistake on my part, so I'm glad we're looking at it. So at the bottom of page 14, under Initiative EX 1.4, we have Objective 4C. Review the state of, and then I have 2 dots. My intent was not to leave those as dots, but to put in some. So review the state of economic progress and health and the residential housing market. That was my intent there. And consider establishing triggers or a time frame for curtailment of economic incentives, or the active promotion of residential development would be at the end of that statement. So it's shown as time frame 1, so we need to be thinking about it this year. Priority 2, so it's not exactly 100% front burner, but shouldn't just be forgotten about. So if you have any better words than I just described for those 2 dots, that's fine. But that's the intent of that. So that would kind of be a little bit of a change. I mean, it's sort of like the Federal Reserve Bank indicating that they might be increasing interest rates in the future. I think that might be where we are. If there is a stock market, it might react to that. So that was that item. The last item on the staff report had to do with what? Oh, we're talking about hiring additional staff to consult or staff or consultant to manage or promote the city's online presence. I think that's come up, and it will certainly be a budget discussion item. That one's on page 17. It's also a priority one. Not that we're committing to do that, but this discussion also kind of rolls into some of our Parks and Recreation master planning objectives in terms of increasing our recreational programming options, not just in fitness, but also maybe in arts or some other areas that might be a benefit to the community. When we start talking about doing that, summer concert series, events planning, that sort of brings up the idea of additional staff to support some of that. I don't think it's a this year thing. I don't think it's a 2020 budget item potentially, or maybe it is. So that's included as well. So yeah, I think those are the changes that you've since the last time we talked about it. I had initially a goal of finalizing the update early February, so at the next meeting, if we don't have a lot of discussion or things to add or subtract from what you see in front of you, I think we can get that done. We'll do that by a resolution at the next meeting, or it could slide to that second meeting in February without a problem either. So I'll stop there and turn it over for discussion.
Okay. Questions or other items that you'd like to see additional thought on?
No comment on it, but I see that you are, and I appreciate that you're continuing to carry us at its kind of the whole evolution from what we approved before and not just since we last talked about it. So I think that'll help.
Oh,
so
right.
If you could continue to do that, that's helpful when looking back.
See the chain of edit, yeah.
Yeah, no, just drop what we talked about at the last meeting.
Right.
But
right.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So the intent is for this to exist as a red line version for 2019, just like it did in 2018. Okay. And so when we go to do it in 2020, we'll essentially accept all those changes to have a fresh document and redline that.
Okay.
Is that consistent?
I think
with
so
what,
because
yeah,
you will
no,
have
that makes sense.
Yeah, you'll
Okay.
have the prior versions.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not a new strategic plan every year. It's just the evolution of the previous one.
Just a 1 year evolution.
At that point, if you want to compare year to year, you can pull up the prior.
Yep.
Yeah, the
year, but
priors.
still-
Yeah, the priors.
and still
yeah.
have that chain of
Yep. I like it.
progress
Good.
or edits or.
And- Again, the intent is at the 5 year mark, we blow up the whole thing and completely redo it with re-engagement of civics, the community, and the whole thing. Okay, good.
All right.
Well, we'll bring that back in
So if
February.
you think anything, get it to Mike before the next
Yeah,
meeting.
sure,
Right?
sure.
Said that last time too.
Very good.
4B, consider bids for gym floor repair and refinishing.
Yes, Council, this is an item that is actually was on our CIP to begin with, and then last year we decided to include this in just the yearly operating budget for the community center. We have a line item that is $35,000 in capital outlay to include the gym floor resurfacing and also to replace those two doors right there and the two similar doors a floor above. They're just getting hard to operate and they're leaky, and so those are the two things we have to fund with $35,000 in that budget. The work on the gym floor, in the late 90s, we had a roof leak there, and the gym floor got wet and caused some damage, and that damage has kind of been there since that time in the southwest corner. We're going to have to remove some boards and probably replace some understructure in the floor itself. We don't know exactly how much that's going to be. Once that repair's done, then we'll sand it, we'll paint it, and then primer sealer, and then a coat of finish. Basically just a resurfacing of the existing floor. Jay got 3 bids on this. The low bid was Von Lentil at $18,725, and then everybody was asked to get a per square foot of subfloor repair. They were also the lowest on that unit cost of $5 per square foot. So we're asking for approval of that $18,725 plus a $2,500 amount for the subfloor replacement. We think that's enough area to cover the damage.
Okay. Questions for Mike?
Just curious, how did you draw the interest of a company from Hayes?
You
They
know,
just submitted?
they just submitted.
This
I
is
think,
all online, is that?
No. Jay went out and
He called.
did this.
So they're known for
specifically. Yeah, they've
this type of
done
work?
Yeah, they've done work in the area before. I couldn't say exactly how, but or exactly where, but I know they've done work in this area.
Well, then I'll make a motion to approve Von Lentil's bid of $18,725 plus the requested contingency.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Murdock,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Hanamichael.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Motion carried, Mayor.
All right. 4C, consider ordinance amending city code to comply with new cereal malt beverage law.
Yes, council, this is simply to update our city code to match state law. On April 1, 2019, retailers will be permitted to sell up to 6% beer. And so what the ordinance does is just define cereal malt beverage. Right now it's defined as 3.2. This marries it up with the state statute and indicates that up to 6% can be sold.
Okay. That ordinance number,
2455?
2455, did I miss it?
No, I guessed it.
No.
Is that right? All right, I make a motion, we approve ordinance 2455, complying with the new cereal malt beverage law.
I'll second it. And that's why you're president.
All right, any discussion or questions? If not, roll call, please.
Hanamichael,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Murdock.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Motion carried.
Okay. 4D, discuss five-year CIP for 2019 to 2023.
Yes, council. Just like the strategic plan, our aim is to update the 5-year capital improvement program on a yearly basis at the first of the year so we can roll those discussions into the budgeting process, which starts earlier every year, it seems like, but generally we handle the bulk of that in the spring and approve that in the summer. Last year was really the first year of what I would call a comprehensive capital improvement plan. We spent several months engaging the community and stakeholders and council, planning commission on that document last year. This is the whole thing. Most of that's appendices, it's background information, reports from previous years, but it is quite a document. So rather than starting with a red line of that whole thing, I thought we'd start our discussions talking about what's changed in priority since last year. Some of the projects obviously have been done, some are still ongoing that we identified in that 5-year CIP. We have some different conditions on funding arrangements, funding assumptions for some of these, and new projects have come to our attention since we did this last year. So I thought it would be best to just start with a list of projects and talk about projects first. Eventually, the whole document's going to need to be revised, changed, updated. I'm not exactly sure the best way to do that. I don't think a red line is the way to do that one. It'll get really messy really quick, but we'll figure that out. But the bulk of the plan essentially is the projects and the funding sources. That's what it's about. The rest of it is how we got there, public engagement, priority rankings, and then project scopes. A lot of that document is just kind of defining what it is we mean when we're talking about these projects for these cost numbers, and then also financing plans as well. So I thought we'd start with the list of projects and the list of funding sources. So attached to your staff report, I've got these, and I apologize profusely for spreadsheeting you to death, but it really is nothing but a spreadsheet. The CIP at its core is a spreadsheet of projects that we're going to be looking at funding and performing over the next 5 years. Appendix A is the exact spreadsheet that's in the current plan that we approved last year. I won't go through this thing in a lot of detail, but there are some things to bring to your attention that have occurred during the past year that affect some of the assumptions that we've given, or that we made last year when we approved the plan. The first one, and in the staff report, I'm talking about this on page 1. Funding source number 14 on this list, federal STP, Surface Transportation Plan dollars. These are the federal dollars that are allocated through the Mid-America Regional Council's process. Every 2 years, they submit requests for projects, they rank those projects, and they dole out whatever federal money is assigned to our region to the communities in the area. Our hope was when we did the plan last year that we would get funding for 2 projects on our CIP. One was the 83rd Street Railroad Bridge replacement. That's the one just west of Kickapoo that goes over the government railroad. And then the other project was a reconstruction of Ottawa Street between 82nd and down to the Riverfest Park. We got real close to getting some funding on the Ottawa Street project, but in the end, we didn't get any funding. We didn't get funding for either one of those projects. So we struck out there. We'll talk a little bit more later, but essentially that means that those 2 projects, as we have them scheduled in the 2018 CIP, we can't make that happen on those schedules. The second thing to bring to your attention is funding source 20, contribution from Hudamaki. This resulted from discussions that we had with Hudamaki about their entrance onto Commerce Road, where Commerce curves. The Hudamaki has that entrance that's a weird diamond configuration. We've talked about that here before, the plan to reconfigure that to make it safer. Over the course of the fall, Hudamaki agreed to fund some engineering study analysis to look at differing arrangements for that intersection. One of them was a T intersection, changing that whole thing to a T so that Commerce doesn't sweep around and keep going through, but it comes to a T and stops, and you'd have to turn one way or another. And another option was a roundabout. And then the third option was much like the one we'd initially proposed. All 3 of those cost estimates came in quite a bit higher than we initially were estimating. I think the CIP last year showed about a project cost of about $55,000. The cheapest option was also the T intersection option. It's about almost 3 times that amount. And then in the end, Hudamaki indicated that they weren't really in favor of that, the cheapest option, and weren't interested really in granting any contribution to any rearrangement there. So with that said, we might consider just removing it from the CIP altogether. There are other options for Hudamaki to connect to Commerce Drive, someplace north of the curve, on the straight section down at the bottom of the hill. They've explored that internally a little bit. We know it is a safety issue, but we over the last 5 years there's been 0 accidents. It's not going to get any better. We anticipate traffic to increase on that section of road, but maybe it's just maybe it's obviously something that we can't make happen for $55,000, and Hudamaki won't be contributing to a solution as we had it contemplated in this CIP.
And like on that location in particular, does it make sense also that we kind of wait to see how the development in that area continues to evolve as well?
Yeah, there is.
Because that may influence kind of the way that
that's right.
geometry works as well.
Yeah, there's been discussions about the development of that area, adding some public streets into that area, redividing those lots so they access commerce at a different location. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The other things, little things we could do with signage or striping, interim improvements that we have done a little bit of in the past. Again, it's not tenable to sit here and say, well, there's never been an accident, so there never will be an accident. That's not, I don't think, at all what anybody's indicating. But And maybe there's another solution that no one's thought about, but it's kind of where.
With the retraction of wanting to help out, I think that.
Yeah. Well, it's not just the money. It's kind of the. They're not thrilled about the T or the original proposal that we had in the existing CIP. They don't.
That
really
was a
like
T
that.
perpendicular to the curve, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
that was not their preferred alternative.
Yeah, initially they weren't.
Yeah.
Well, so the issue on it is that T,
It's,
you can't allow trucks to turn left out of that because of the sight lines to the west. So trucks would have to go to the right. And I think that's primarily what we didn't know that
Yeah.
when we initially put it in the CIP. So their trucks would have to turn right, and they're not crazy about that.
or you'd have to try and enforce a speed reduction that, post a slower speed so that
Yeah.
the sight distance met the signed speed, and
Yeah, that's tough.
whether or not that would
Right.
work and what speed that would be.
Right.
So,
And in the end, you still, it's a margin.
Right.
You don't want to say it's marginal, but
so was the
no,
big
you-
concern about it the car? I mean, just regular, not their truck traffic, but just
Just
regular
you're right.
traffic coming out.
yeah, the big,
I mean, it seems like
It's just a confusing
some kind of
intersection.
signage, something different with signage. I mean, most of them that are coming out are the ones that are coming out of Hutamaki that don't stop.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the ones that do it every day. So you would think that some type of extra. Well, I mean, it's true because it's not. It's the
Sometimes
ones
a
that
high
keep
rate
coming
of speeding.
straight that cause most of the problem, or go right.
It's-
It's going
yeah,
out
the
of
biggest
it.
problem is coming
That
out
one going
here.
directly west.
Right.
Well, and actually, a worse one is if you're coming south and you
Oh,
want to come in
yeah.
to the property, you're kind of suicide chicken, sort of, from people coming around the curve. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we did include signage there and some striping there. This has been 5 or 6 years ago to kind of curtail that. But if you don't turn there, then you're turning left here, and that doesn't make sense. So
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest issue. Is
Okay. But it's not big. I guess it's not the big truck issue. That's the
necessarily.
concern.
You're
It's
right.
mainly
It's
just
vehicles.
vehicles.
Yeah,
Okay.
anybody really.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thus the probably little less and desire for them to
Right.
make a solution that isn't favorable that makes it worse on
Right.
creates a problem that they didn't have before. So
And so another one of the other things that was discussed was something like like this that would come off of here and come down whatever, connect to that or connect straight over here, something like that. That's the other alternative that we've never really explored because that would be all on private property.
I like
and
the straight one that goes.
yeah, I would
Straight
think we'd
from
have a
there to
good
there,
street
there to
engineer who
there.
could come up with something.
So there's something.
There's surely signs or something, speed bumps, something.
People don't always pay attention to signs, but they usually go where the road is.
So we decide whether or not it comes off the CIP. We just push it back.
Yeah, I think.
Is that what you're wanting tonight?
No, I don't necessarily need anything tonight. I think we just want to kind of talk about what's changed and some new ideas and let it simmer a little bit and
Introducing it all.
kind of introducing it all. Yeah. Again, I want to be done with this by the end of March because that's kind of when we're putting the budget together. So that's kind of our deadline. So we've got 5 or 6 meetings here maybe to take care of it.
If we did the straight T, we could sell some right of way back.
Yeah. The other idea was
Travis or whoever owns that property on the.
to just take
North.
this. It was discussed. Justin Milburn here in town did these layouts for Hutamaki, and he would worry. He brought it up that with a T intersection, what's the level of service of that intersection going to be? If people are stopping and traffic gets busy, and you're going to be backing people up if that's a stop there. We might have a time when traffic flow gets pretty heavy and that T intersection doesn't really work.
It looks like it's halfway to a roundabout already.
20 minutes every day.
I mean, it's
This is
it's already like just curve the road a little different. You've
slopes
got a
aren't so
roundabout,
good
right?
for a roundabout.
Yeah,
right
it's
there.
it's got a big
the
cross slope,
grades are
so that
It's
makes it
actually a
pretty.
pretty good down slope right there.
Yeah,
the problem.
roundabouts need to be level.
Flatter.
Okay,
That's
well,
good. Moving
not
on.
to belabor that.
Moving on that
We
one.
haven't come up with the perfect plan yet.
Right,
for that.
right.
If Rick can't come up with it, it's probably not doable. That's just
Yeah. Okay, project number 24 on the list then. On the existing list, what is it? So the traffic signal at 91st and Lexington. We heard that I gave that little presentation on that traffic study that was done. Does not recommend a traffic signal now. Doesn't look like warrants for the traffic signal are going to be met anytime in the near future. As a high-cost alternative, they've recommended a roundabout at that location, 91st and Lexington. So there's something to discuss, and we'll get more about that later. I didn't put the layouts in this report, but we've seen the layouts and we've seen the videos, and boy, it looks great, right? But half the people love roundabouts.
It's in two different plans. I mean, it's been recommended in two different plans.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And you know how we talked about how, if you're eastbound and you can't make that left, you take a right and you go flip a U right down there. Well, I was going over there the other morning and I was going northbound, waiting to make a left turn to go west. And actually, a gal that lives across the street from me, she went up to 90th, flipped a U there, and came down and made a right.
Oh.
So everybody's kind of driving that like a roundabout.
As a circle.
Right?
It's already working. You're right.
People are making U-turns
It's
in
just
both
an
directions.
elongated roundabout.
Really?
They're already driving it that way.
Yeah, I'd heard that as well.
Well, it wasn't your daughter.
No, but I've heard several people say
Yeah,
that.
they just go up, flip the U, and come back and make the right.
That or the light one.
Yeah.
Both sides.
Well, okay.
Yeah,
I could pull up
I'm not a
this.
huge roundabout fan, but that seems to be the ideal solution for that area, or at least a better.
It's the
better.
With the T intersection, it's really the
Yeah.
only way to solve it.
I'm getting to like roundabouts.
I like it.
I think it's just it's all
Well, especially the
stubbornness.
2-lane when you showed seemed to be
Yeah.
more effective and long-term solution.
Okay, well, another good thing about that roundabout is that corridor is CARS eligible, so we could apply for CARS funding for that. And also in the staff report, I guess I'll just skip it when we get there, but there's a possibility for a benefit district for the properties along 91st Street to pay for a portion of the roundabout as well. The history on that, when we put in the signal here at Lexington and Commerce, we did a benefit district that included all of the K10 corridor properties, all these properties there. We approached the school district about doing the same, and they were reluctant because it didn't touch their property, and so we actually technically did include them in the benefit district, but we gave them an economic development grant that paid for their whole. So in essence, they didn't pay for any of that. During those discussions, 15 years and 5 school boards ago, they indicated that they could possibly consider contributing to something at 91st and Lexington. That's not a discussion we've initiated at all. But anyway, the opportunity is there. Probably the discussion could be had about
Once you open that road all the way through, I mean, it's going to make a good solution for it.
Yeah. Of course, we said when we presented the traffic study that we hope that a lot of that will be alleviated when we punch 91st Street through. But also, we know that there will be impacts from a 434-unit apartment complex that won't help the situation.
Shouldn't we then keep it on, but just push it down in time and change the name of it?
I did.
Oh,
So that's
okay.
later.
Okay, sorry, I
later.
didn't see it there.
Well, it's not there yet. Number
Okay.
5 there on the staff.
It's there, but it's not there.
It's there. It's
Just
on the
not
next
really there.
spreadsheet that I'm going to bombard you with. The gym floor we just talked about. We took it off the CIP, obviously. Number 6 here on page 2 of the staff report. The new public works facility. Again, we've got $2.3 million in here in the outer years for that. In the 2018 plan, we're still hopeful to be able to purchase the property on Lexington that we've talked about before. We'll know more at the end of this month. whether or not that'll be available to us. If so, it's about half that price, but it'll have to be done immediately. So that's something that we'll still keep in mind. And then the last thing on the existing plan is the soccer fields, project 16 and 17. After we did the joint feasibility study with the Parks and Rec, the results of that were a facility that I think is beyond our ability to really consider, and I think it's probably time to consider that our soccer facility won't ever happen
I don't agree with that.
at Lexington Lake. Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, I might not agree at Lexington Lake, but
Yeah.
I really think we've committed to finding a solution,
right.
and we have gone 2 years now without
Right.
finding a solution.
No, I'm not.
There was a soccer discussion in the Parks master plan, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're
So-
coming to that. Yeah, we're coming up on that later. The next spreadsheet. No, I'm not saying forget soccer. I'm saying our solution probably isn't going to be at Lexington.
Well,
Lexington Lake.
under
We're going to
num-
have to figure something
Under
else.
number 7, you're saying that it seems appropriate to remove it from the CIP, but put it into the Parks master plan as
Yeah.
part of the larger
Yeah.
discussion and possible funding solution there.
Right. So we'll talk about that now. We got the master plan approved. It's got a list of many projects and lots of money. One of the park board's first goals, throughout this year, is to try and whittle that list down, prioritize that list, and bundle those projects into something that might be able to be submitted to the voters in terms of a referendum on a recreation bond. Obviously, we're going to have to be very involved in that discussion in terms of scope of that plan. We're going to have to involve our financial advisors, our bond counsel, to see what's advisable for us in our current financial position with the current debt we have out and the current revenue streams and growth potential. All of that. What's that?
Is there a date set up for that meeting?
Well, the park board meets the first Monday of every month, and their goal is to kind of throughout the course of the year sort of have that discussion. So it'll be ongoing. We don't have a
Okay, I thought that you were going to have public input on that, besides the park board, like you did on the.
Oh yeah, no, I think for sure it will have to include.
When we included the public on some of the stuff that the council came up with, when we come in here and
Yeah.
audit the thing, are you going to do the same meetings on that?
They already
or-
did that though with the
Well,
park.
we did that for the master plan, but I think we'll want to do a similar public engagement thing if we're considering something that's big money that we want voters to think
Right.
about. We're going to have to do something real similar to that.
Yeah.
And the park board's, I think, set up well to kind of lead that and be the generator of that. And council have to be involved early because, like I said, we need to get our hands around, what's advisable, the scale, just the scope of it, just the dollars of it. Can we do $1 million? Can we do 2, 3, 10, whatever that number is? Forget I said any numbers at all, but just what the scope of it might be, I think would be kind of
Well, couldn't
thing
you
number
do that
one.
on a consensus area to the council prior to their public deal?
Yeah.
And then that way you would have a consensus of what we looked at. And then let's go ahead with the public side of it.
Yeah. So that actually is kind of how I envision that. Let's get comfortable how much,
Right.
if any, we're willing to consider in terms of dollars. Then initiate that whole discussion with the public and park board.
What's being done on soccer fields in the meantime? I mean, there was some budget. Are they just running the way they've always run, Miller Park and Countryside?
No, remember
and-
we moved out of Miller Park,
okay.
Riverfest.
so we're down at Riverfest.
Okay, down Riverfest.
That's how it'll be till we figure out
Okay.
the long term. Yep. I think Riverfest is an improvement over Miller, certainly in terms of playing surface.
Is it holding up better?
Yeah, we don't. Oh well, we don't have the water and the mud, the muck problems. Parking isn't quite as good, but
We're using it for both seasons.
Better get that
no,
bathroom.
still
down there.
it's still just spring season.
We'll move that up.
Fall
next
season we
year,
do it
this
at the
year.
schools property.
Surely we'll find a little extra money somewhere. We do.
Okay. We're on then to the next spreadsheet. I guess maybe we could. I've talked about most of the stuff I want to discuss on the Appendix B. Then
Yeah, I think they made you.
we've kind of talked about this. Appendix B essentially is that same spreadsheet from Appendix A. It just removes some of those funding sources that we talked. The surface transportation funding source. We've moved it back. My current feeling, my current thought is that we're not going to be successful in the MARC process with the Ottawa Street project, but I think we have a chance if we resubmit the 83rd Street Bridge project, and that's the only one. Maybe we can revise that scope to fit better within their scoring matrix. So I think in 2 years when we resubmit, we'll resubmit that the bridge project. And so I've therefore shown some funding for the bridge project,
The
delayed by 2 years.
Ottawa Street project, whenever the SMAC
Yeah.
maintenance funds come around, then that will be,
Right.
and I don't know what, is that
Is that the one we lost the project because the two culverts were
Were
just like
3 inches
too
apart?
Yeah.
close or far apart, and it
They're not a bridge.
qualifies a
They're
bridge
two culverts.
because of
Yeah.
inches.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so the SMAC, we still show that SMAC money in for the Ottawa Street project. It's pushed back a bit because the Ottawa Street project's pushed back. I want to get to then the last spreadsheet on the staff report. This one, Lori, I think is the one. So these are new projects that have come up, in the last year. So we got project number 26, the roundabout. You're going to design it 1 year, construct it the next year. So we show a funding source for that. CARS funding of $500,000, and I'm throwing in a potential benefit district of $450,000 for that project now too. Understand that's a discussion that we still need to have. The other one on this list is the big one, and this is just a placeholder. This is the Parks and Rec Master Plan Bond Referendum projects. Right now, it's a placeholder at $3 million. Starts in 2021. I'm not sure it can happen any quicker than that, but maybe it could. That number, again, we can talk about that a little bit more if you want to, but I think we've already kind of articulated at least my idea. I haven't bounced it off really anybody else except for the park board. We had some discussions about the process of if we want to proceed in that manner to do that. So that's shown on there. The other project 28 on here is an item that spins primarily out of some economic development discussions, some projects that we've had extending sewer service to the area of 103rd and Edgerton Road. We've been, at least half a dozen, probably more like 10 big projects that could occur out there in the last several years. Those parcels, although they're not in the city limits now, really represent a pretty good economic development opportunity in terms of large size parcels for large size projects. So that project here would extend sewers to that area. And its totals, just over 650,000. Project 29
on that one,
yeah.
Might it make sense to basically shift the money that's otherwise been allocated for the 95th Street sewer extension into that area? So we're just kind of reprioritizing or relocating where it may be applied in the same time frame.
Yeah,
because it'd almost be net zero at that point.
That's right. Yeah, good point. I guess you wonder which horse to bet on. I mean, is the area around Lexington and 95th gonna develop sooner, or are we gonna get the big home run project out at Edgerton and 103rd? That's kind of
more interest west.
It'll be smaller stuff at 95th and Lexington.
It would have to be smaller stuff.
Yeah. But the other side of that is you already have businesses there that could benefit from an extension. It is worth it, and I think
Because do we budget for them both? What I'm wondering is, do we budget for them both, or do we just shift kind of where the priority has been based on
Right.
where we've seen the market really
Right.
driving?
or maybe we just leave kind of the option, leave the money in there,
Yeah.
and say whichever it is.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a possibility too, because it doesn't mean we have to do either, but we've got placeholders for them both.
Yep.
Although you would presume that you're going to tee up the design so that you're shovel ready.
Maybe you design them both.
It's for discussion.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. The next one, City Hall security improvements and asbestos removal. Those are two projects totaling $120,000 that we talked about a little bit in the master plan, the City Hall master plan. And we do still, that master plan, remember, we didn't finalize that. We have some revisions and updates to make on that. We'll bring that back. I don't know if it'll be the next meeting to finalize that. But that's the security upgrades up here, and then asbestos removal. Project 30 there is kind of a concept. Lexington Avenue pedestrian crossing improvements. We've talked about in terms of that 91st Street intersection. We talked about it in terms of the intersection at Penner by Dollar General, and then also at Ottawa Street, and then the mid-block one there by Peoria Street. $200,000 would put hawk signals there, and hawk signals would go over the road rather than just the flashing beacons on either side. It would actually go over the road and turn red rather than just flashing. Those things are, I think, $50,000-$60,000 a piece, somewhere in there. That'd get 3 or 4 of those, or 3 of those and some sidewalk, or don't really have a layout. We have to do some study on it first, but I think it's important to get it on, especially in the area around where the school is. From Dollar General on down to Commerce is going to be important with those apartments going in. And then the last one is K10 monument signage. It's not a new project, been around for quite a while, but it was a honorable mention in the first round of the CIP. I threw it in there in the out year, just because it's been kind of in the public discussion. When we're talking about the upcoming signage regulation discussion about electronic signage on the highway, I think people are. I've heard, and I think the council's discussed a desire to have some sort of a presence in terms of signage out by the highway. So I just threw it in there. I mean, we can take it out if we don't want to prioritize that at this time. So that's it. That's the spreadsheets.
Can I ask you a question here? The Arbor Ridge sidewalk, is that joining does that mean the one where we're trying to join Arbor Ridge to the DeSoto by sidewalk via sidewalk?
Yeah, so that one is actually funded for CDBG money for this year.
For this year.
Yeah.
So my question is, when we're talking about the pedestrian crossing, is there anywhere in there, possibly at Kill Creek, that is going to require something like that after that sidewalk gets completed there?
Well, that project includes a crossing right here at Valley Springs.
What kind of crossing?
But I mean, would it be that we're going to need one of these hawk signal at that point too?
Well, the budget for that didn't include $50,000 for a hawk.
Well, I'm just wondering if this number should be increased up to cover one out there. If we're going to need one out there also, if there's a crossing out there, will we want a hawk signal out there? That this one should be increased to add that in.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that section right there, just because of visibility from the roads and the
speeds are higher here.
It may be that it's going to be really important to have something out there.
Good point.
This is 35. It's all 35s.
Well, it's 35.
Speeds are all the same, but there's a different feel to the road there.
But you're coming off a 45 mile per hour transition.
The thing about this area,
have slowed down that point.
The hawk signals really work better when they're not at an intersection.
Not at an intersection. Well, I just didn't know if there was something.
They can't be at an intersection, right?
I don't think so.
But
there might be something there that we need to.
And the $200,000 is, that's really kind of a placeholder as well, honestly. We haven't done a lot of
Plan
scoping on
comes
that.
together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good point, though.
Yeah, that would be a good spot for something, though, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what it would be, but it just
Well,
seems like it's going
at
to
a
need
m-
something there if there's an intersection. You
yeah.
know.
Yeah. Okay.
And unfortunately, signage alone doesn't seem to do it. If you read about the buses and people not watching the stop signs on the
Right.
buses.
Yeah. Okay, well, that was all I had. If there's any further discussion, I think at the next meeting we'll come back with make some adjustments based on what we talked about tonight, and come back with a little better feel for scopes and cost estimates on some of this new stuff, and then we'll just go from there. Like I said, I think we have a couple months to work through this.
All right,
Okay? All right.
moving on then.
Good. Thank you.
4E.
Yes, council, I placed this ordinance in the email I sent out earlier today. This is just sort of a ordinance to address an issue that came up with regard to the newly adopted building codes. As explained in the message, the new apartment project, at the time they were approved at the Planning Commission, their drawings for the site plan were consistent with the building code we had at that time. Now with the brand new building codes we adopted, particularly the one, it has to do with ADA access, and it sounds like from Steve and Cameron that it is a very progressive standard that a lot of the cities have not incorporated yet. But so that's created a problem with the project, because if they have to comply with that standard, they would have to change their drawings, and sounds like be a significant thing. So the ordinance is intended to just indicate that if you received a final planning commission approval, and within 120 days of that approval you apply for a building permit, Steve would have the discretion. He doesn't have to, but he would have the discretion, such as in this case with the apartment project, where he would hold them to the standard that was in place at the time they got their final approval, instead of the new standard. I did notice on page 2 in the red text, it's supposed to say 120 days, and there's an extra 0. So when you make the motion, if you can just indicate that, I'll strike that extra 0.
Well, it seems reasonable. Any questions for Patrick?
I had another developer approach me and state that the new codes were gonna affect his project by $30,000 or so because of the new energy standards. So has Steve been approached by that, you know?
I haven't heard anything about that yet.
Is it a project that's already been started, or is it one that's in
It
the
has been started. They
future?
haven't pulled any building permits for homes, but
But it could apply then in the same
that's kind of why I was asking.
waiver, the same
I mean,
grace.
He made mention of it to me, and I asked Steve about it, and Steve said that the energy code required a different test that was going to be like $2 or $3 grand, and times the 17 or whatever homes are going to go in there.
So if he's received his planning approvals within this time, yeah, we could.
So whatever homes he does.
Yeah, this isn't project specific. This
Right.
is
Yeah, they've been approved, then
Yeah.
So we might share that with him too.
So-
Appreciate it.
I'd make a motion to approve the ordinance 2456 with the striking of the extra 0 under item 4202B, I think it is.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 All right. Okay, executive session we don't have, so advisory report, city administrator.
Yes, council, a couple of reminders. We'll be closed Monday in observance of Martin Luther King Day. This will be the first time since we revised our personnel policy to include that as a holiday.
Thought something was
So we'll need to remind some employees that they
Just let
do
him
not
show
need
up.
to report Monday. Also, a reminder about the Public Safety Town Hall, January 29th. That's a Tuesday evening. We'll have it in here. It'll start at 6:30. The sheriff's office will be there with the presentation. We'll also have the Fire District, Northwest Consolidated, will have a presence, and MedAct as well. So that'll be our Public Safety Town Hall. It'll be the second one. The first one last year only had the sheriff. So
It went really well.
yeah, it was-
Well attended.
It really was.
6 p.m.
6:30. Yep. So that's good. Also wanted to give a quick update on the 91st Street plans. CFS indicates that they're doing a final review. Should be done by the end of next week, as long as James can overcome the flu. So who's James? We'll make sure he
He's like our,
gets back into work.
he's our senior tech.
Okay. So they'll be sending those to me for a final review in 2 weeks. So the overall plan is to advertise, get those out to bid on February 8th with a bid opening on March 1st.
Is the Lexington Commerce stoplight a part of that, or is that separate?
We're kind of parallel with those.
Okay.
Those plans are a little further along, but they need KDOT review.
Okay.
So those plans are at KDOT right now. And we were just talking about just kind of be the squeaky wheel there to make sure that
Any
those-
idea of time frame when that project might actually be able to occur?
Well,
Because I've had 3 questions on that intersection where they
Yeah.
didn't know it, but in the last week and a half from different people. So
I would think it wouldn't be any later than this.
No.
I mean, is that fair to
KDOT's
say?
had them for a little over a week, and they're
Okay,
like
so-
2 to 3 weeks
so
to
some,
review.
summertime.
Oh,
maybe?
yeah.
Oh no,
Yeah,
we're
we're-
spring.
yeah.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
they should be done with that. by
Ideally,
May.
we'd have them bid about the same time, and then
Okay.
the construction then could be coordinated if it's not the same contractor.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. That was that. The other thing, and we talked about this a little bit, RG fiber and Zoom fiber are descending on the community. Zoom has started some work already along Lexington Avenue. RG fiber has delivered conduit and fiber down to their layoff yard by the sewer plant. They have obtained permits for the line that runs from 83rd and Kill Creek to here, and also the one that goes down Kill Creek out to 95th Street. They've obtained those permits. They were scheduled to start construction on that the day after this big snowstorm, so that's put them down. We are still working on ribbon cutting ceremonies for their work, and basically to kind of celebrate our citywide solution and the hard work we've done. They have a couple of vendors that have expressed an interest in being included in that, and possibly even funding or arranging for some of those activities. The rub is they kind of want to wait till the weather gets a little bit warmer so that we can kind of be outside and not risk frostbite. So
Well, maybe we
that's-
do it when he gets it to the gym, and we can have it in the gym, and we can
Well,
flip the
that's an
switch on
idea.
the free Wi-Fi in the gym.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Anyway, I didn't want you to think we'd forgotten about that. It's still in the works. And then the last thing I wanted to report, we've been working on end of year 2018 end of year stuff, and we'll get you your monthly budget report. It's a little bit late this year because of the end of the year stuff. But I did want to let you know that it's looking like the general fund, we started the year with a balance of 1.37 million in the general fund. We're going to end it with 2.2 million in the general fund. So that's an increase of $830,000. That's the highest year-ending general fund mark in our history, exceeding, so it's risen every year for the past 4 or 5. So we've added $830,000 to that general fund, which is great, but also expected. We knew really even as early as the budget time last year, the big bulk of that was the Cherokee Woods tax sale and the revenue from that. Another big bulk of that were sales tax. We ended the year sales tax over 2017 25% higher. 2018 was than 2017.
And 2017 was a big increase over
2017
2016.
was 14% higher than 16. Yeah. So we realized that when we put the 2019 budget together. And so as a result, the 2019 budget has a decrease in the general fund. We expect a decrease because we're going to be spending some of this money of about $790,000. But still, the sales tax numbers just kept very strong. So that's, I thought, good news. Good news on that. So I'll be getting your budget report out to you probably the first part of next week. And so that'll be kind of this year end, and then we'll get in the 5-year projections squared up with the year end. From the year end totals, that'll kind of be our starting point for the 2019 budget, 2020 budget for the year ahead. So that was it. That was all I had.
Okay.
Thank you.
Patrick?
Nothing for me. Thanks.
All right. Brad's not here. Lana?
2 things, Mayor. Just a reminder that the chamber dinner is coming up next Friday, 6 o'clock, 6:30. Sarah, help me out.
5.
6. Okay. Sorry, I didn't have that paper with me tonight. So I think everyone signed up to attend that. And also, the mayor has received the invitation to the Greater Kansas City Area Mayor's Prayer Breakfast that our city officials have been attending for the 20-plus years I've been here. So if you are interested in attending that, check your calendar. The date is February the 26th, and it's down at Convention Center, Kansas City. The breakfast begins at 7:30, and it's usually over by 9.
It is a Tuesday morning when we have a EDC board meeting scheduled.
So if you are planning to attend that, please give me your name maybe by Wednesday next week. So Melinda Minks has already sent me an email today and said, hey, is DeSoto showing up? So she always saves us a table up close. So let me know next week if you would, please.
Okay.
Also, I will not be here at the council meeting on the 7th. Patrick's going to cover for me, or on the 6th, I'm sorry. I will be flying to IIMC for board meeting, and I will let you know when I get back about all of the activities that will be coming up in May.
Okay.
All right, that's all I have,
Excited to
Mayor.
hear. Thank you, Lana. Council comments. Danny, you want to start us tonight?
Yes, sir. Mayor, I wanted to say you did a good job on handling the meeting tonight, and you kept it in line, and I want to say you did a great job there.
Thank you, Danny.
And Mike, I want to say that the city did a fantastic job on the snow we had.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And,
Yeah, the crews really did.
They really did a good job on the city. I came out, and it was just, and I got 2 phone calls, and they were very appreciative. One of the comments, and I know that probably is that, boy, it was a lot better than Bonner. But that was just one of the comments. So apparently they may have some problems, but I just wanted to add that in there.
Maybe they had more snow, Danny. I
Well,
don't know,
maybe
we'll
so.
see.
That could be, or they got a late start. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Danny. Kevin?
Danny stole the snow thunder, so
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's all right. I scratched it off. So no, they did a great job. I don't have anything else.
Okay.
Third on the snow comment. Couple other items. I'm going to be going to the Government Day this coming Wednesday, the Kansas League Government Day. Second, I want to echo what the mayor said as far as Mr. Young. Thank you for putting your name in. Thank you for stepping up, and definitely look for other opportunities, because I think you'd be great in other places. So echo the mayor on that. You already took the public safety comment, although I did. There's a big thread on in and around DeSoto, and this is nothing we can really do anything about people running stop signs, and those stop signs being the mobile stop signs on buses. So when the stop sign comes out to say stop and let kids on, apparently there's a lot of people stepping up and saying, hey, so I've been redirecting them to show up to the public safety forum. And I know Mr. Bedford was also mentioned in there and responded to that some.
Okay.
So, which brings me to my final point. Tomorrow morning I will be down at the sheriff's office, sitting in on 6 deputies that would like to be the next DeSoto patrol officer. So Deputy Vickers has been promoted, and we'll be looking at who's taking his place tomorrow morning. So look forward to that. And there's some good names that have been requested to take that slot. So
It's a plum assignment. Thank you, Rob. Lori?
I don't have anything, Mayor. Thank you.
Kevin?
Just kind of a comment and thought. You know, we've got a lot of, we're going to be seeing a lot of new residents in DeSoto, presumably. And we have from K10 Apartments, the EDC breakfast, I think they commented, you know, most of the people that are moving into there are moving into DeSoto. They're not people moving into them who are from here. And with housing starts going on, the new apartments and whatnot, I just hope that we can encourage an environment of being welcoming of new residents of DeSoto. And, you know, a lot of times there's this little thing of, you know, are you from here, right?
Right.
You know, Mr. Young, you know, you've been here a long time, but, you know, you may not be considered from here, for our community. I've been recognized the same way. I've been here 18 years and I'm not from here, right? But with people coming into town, I mean, I hope we help to establish a culture that we really welcome new people to DeSoto, and they are our citizens just as well as anybody who was born here and went to high school here and so on and so forth. So I hope not that I've seen it from any of us at all, but I think we have to kind of be proactive with thoughts
more.
on new people coming to town. Let's be very, very welcoming and recognize everybody as citizens of DeSoto. That's all I have.
Thank you. I don't really have anything. Thanks, everybody, for a good meeting. Entertain a motion.
Motion
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
My thing was off.
There's nothing else to watch. It's that. People aren't so fast.